What? Bang!
Whoa! Wrestling podcast. Just when they think they got the answers, I change the question.
Rep, screw, rep.
Yeah!
Woo!
Who are you to doubt El Dandy? Because this guy's a serious professional.
Did he do it?
Too hot to handle and too cold to hold. And I am Macho King Savage.
Shut your mouth, you thong-wearing fatty. I said WWE stands for...
It's me, Austin! I will never retire!
Promotional consideration paid for by the following.
Hey, yo, Fro Wrestling Podcast listeners, welcome to the show where we don't sing it, we bring it. Help us out and click subscribe to show your support. Are you sick and tired of dropping $60 to $100 for the latest and greatest wrestling game? Stop immediately. Go to Wrestler Unstoppable, available exclusively through Facebook. Create a wrestler, sign contracts, get into storylines, headline PLEs, even build your own corporation from the ground up, all included in Wrestler Unstoppable, available now to all Facebook users, totally free. If you want to become a member of the Fro Wrestling Podcast family, you want your name in the shoutouts, like my good buddy down there in Texas, John, check out our Patreon page at patreon.com/Fro Wrestling Podcast. Sign up today. Don't forget we have loyalty rewards. Anybody who contributes $15 a month, you get to co-host a show with me. $7.50 a month, enter into a drawing to do just the same. And just like John and I, working on some Patreon exclusive content, you too could be a part of the show. Hello everybody, welcome to this episode of the Fro Wrestling Podcast. If you've got questions, comments, something you want me to touch on in the future episode, drop us a line, give us a call. Fro Wrestling Sound Off line 267-642-1160, and we will get to those in a future episode. Lot to talk about tonight. Let's get started right away. The big conversation of the week so far has been Andrade El Idolo returning to AEW on Dynamite, attacking Kenny Omega and aligning himself with the Don Callis family. One more out of the 9 million people in the Don Callis family. Now, first off, I don't have a problem with him being with the Don Callis family. I think the bigger concern here was how so fast, so quick, just released by WWE. But what it boils down to is he was such a concern. Apparently, he failed another drug test, some kind of controlled substance test. Now, we don't know if he actually failed a test or failed to provide a sample for a test. Now, in distant years past, back, things happened with Randy Orton, with Rey Mysterio, different talents. When they would fail a drug test for some reason, some performance-enhancing drug, then there was always like a blurb put on WWE.com. You always found out about it. These days, apparently, that is not the case. And apparently, this is not the first time that Andrade had been busted for some kind of performance-enhancing situation. This time, there was no playing around about it, whether it was a failed test or a refusal to take a test or a failure to provide the sample for the test. He wasn't just let go of his contract. He was fired immediately. No 90-day no-compete clause, just straight up terminated. That's very different from what we've seen in the past where they future endeavor you and you get 90 days to sit at home, collect a paycheck until you can pursue your next option. This was done right away, and apparently AEW has been working on his return for a couple weeks now since his release from WWE, and this apparently Tony Khan and his perspective on Andrade has been very positive since he left the company. His contract ran out with AEW at Worlds Collide back in 2023. Went back to WWE January 2024. No bad blood. Was able to return to the company last night. And look, I understand putting him in a feud with Kenny Omega, but this is a feud that he can't possibly win. Omega cannot keep taking losses when he's been bragging about the fact that he doesn't have a ton of matches left under his belt. So the reality is, Andrade coming in and attacking Omega, in my opinion, great. It gets Andrade into almost a main event level status match. But what does it do long-term for Andrade? Because at the end of the day, he's going to have to lose the feud to Kenny Omega. Because I believe all of us are expecting Omega and Okada to face off one more time, this time in the Continental Classic at the end of the year. And this is a roadblock to that if you put Andrade over. I don't think you can do that. And at this point, let's be honest. Why would anybody look at Andrade as a main event level talent to begin with? When you go to WWE at first, comes out of NXT, he was pushed really strong in NXT by Triple H, got to the main roster, and just didn't go anywhere of substance. They release him, he goes to AEW, and again, could not get over to a level where he became a main eventer. Leaves, go back to WWE, again stuck in the mid-card, doing almost nothing, holding a speed championship in a makeshift tag team with Rey Fenix, and then released. Now back to AEW, and you're the first guy to bounce back and forth this many times, and now you're instantly in a program with Kenny Omega. I'm not loving the booking because I don't see the long-term fruit of this labor. I just don't. I don't see this ever leading to Andrade being taken seriously as a top flight contender or a top level draw. He does not draw in anybody's views. The issue is Andrade, in a lot of ways, it seems as though, and again, I'm not inside his head and I've never had a conversation with the guy, but it seems as though he believes more in his talent, skills, and what he brings to the table than other people do. I'm not dumping on that. Every wrestler probably feels that way. But the reality is, the ticket sales are what are going to determine who is the top flight talent. And look at AEW right now. Like, you have such a stacked amount of talent. Like, you've got... I was listening to Jim Cornette the other day, because I try to listen to as many programs as I can. He was talking about people like Britt Baker and Chris Jericho and Keith Lee and all these people who are basically sitting on the bench at home collecting a huge, massive paycheck from Tony Khan. Here's another guy coming into the company, and that just muddies the water even more. What is the payroll like for AEW with all the guys who don't make it to television? You people who you're paying week after week after week, and then they don't contribute anything or bring anything to the show. If you can't use everybody, why would you pay those salaries just to keep them from WWE? WWE doesn't have room for them either, and obviously they didn't want Andrade because they just let him go. Maybe they felt like he wasn't bringing enough to the table to counter his salary combined with the drama of the performance-enhancing violations. But whatever it is, their wellness policy is what it is, and that was what led to his release, and now his return to AEW Dynamite. Shocking, I guess. Does it wow the crowd into suddenly buying into the mystique of AEW? I don't think it does anything to move the needle for AEW. The match might be fantastic. Andrade can go. He's a phenomenal performer. He doesn't have the personality. He doesn't have the mic skills to put the whole package together. Now, maybe Don Callis can do the speaking part for him, but at the end of the day, I just don't see him on Kenny Omega's level. And I can't see us spending, it's almost like the John Cena retirement tour. I can't see us spending valuable time of Kenny Omega's career working with a guy that has no chance to win the feud. And if he does, it's an insult, really, to past booking. He should have no business in there for this. So whatever, it is what it is. Gonna have to keep our eye and see how that plays out. Moving on to New Japan Pro Wrestling. If anybody hasn't noticed, in 2025, New Japan Pro Wrestling in previous years had been making a lot of excursions to the United States, really pushing their New Japan Strong version of their brand. And in 2025, it's been very, very light. When COVID-19 pandemic hit back in 2020, it made it difficult for wrestlers to go country to country. Some New Japan people moved to the United States to keep active. That's when they launched Strong. Strong had a good initial following, but now it's a little different. New Japan bringing the number of events much more condensed. They've only made 3 offerings in the United States this year versus the 6 that they had in 2024 and 8 in 2023. And that's not counting promotions that or events that they've co-hosted with other people, but Fightful Select talks about 2 main issues being behind the slowdown in the presentation of New Japan Pro Wrestling in the United States. First being the fact that ticket sales in America have been dropping. And the second being that some New Japan Pro Wrestling talent don't want to come to the United States for events. When you think about it, AEW essentially is a Americanized version of New Japan Pro Wrestling. New Japan Pro Wrestling was making so much strides. They were really pushing to be the number 2 organization in the world. They were doing great stuff. The Okada, Tanahashi, Shinsuke Nakamura, Evil, Sonata, all these incredible talents they had. But their product has dipped significantly in the last 5 years. And now with AEW coming out for the last 6 years, AEW has cultivated such an audience, and the show's presentation and match style is so similar, there's no need to seek out New Japan Pro Wrestling programming if you're an American audience member. And, that's why they've kind of shifted their focus back to Japan itself. In Japan, it's almost like they're going through a renaissance of their brand because they've had a lot of people leave. The Nakamura's going to WWE. When you have people like Kazuchika Okada going to AEW, you have Tetsuya Naito leaving the company and now he's doing his own thing. You have a lot of those guys, and Tanahashi on his retirement tour. all the guys who were the backbone of your organization for the last 15 years are either gone or soon will be. And it's like, well, what's going to be the new identity? Is the identity of New Japan Pro Wrestling? Is it Shota Umino, who's an incredible talent, but doesn't have that world-known reputation for being just a killer in the ring? Is it going to be somebody like Sho and Yo and all these people? I don't know. You got to start cultivating. Hiroki Goto is getting up there in age. Shingo Takagi. Like, there's a lot of guys, but none of them are on the level of a Kazuchika Okada, a Hiroshi Tanahashi, a Shinsuke Nakamura, like they were in years past. So New Japan really needs to do some soul searching. But in the meantime, their their wrestling product in the United States is going to tank for a little while, and we're not going to see anywhere near the amount of shows that we've seen in previous years. Moving on to TNA Wrestling, the president of TNA Wrestling was doing a conversation recently where they were talking about what the prospects of the company going forward were. Carlos Silva, the guy who runs TNA Wrestling for Anthem, spoke about what is the plan for TNA, especially now that they've got this partnership with WWE. And Silva was very clear. They want to continue to build up TNA, eventually potentially leading to a sale. It would not surprise anybody, I don't think, to think that WWE could be that company that wants to move in and purchase TNA Wrestling. I would not be surprised if that actually takes place in the next 12 months. I think the big thing is going to be, can TNA Wrestling secure a media rights deal that will secure some market that WWE's current 3 major shows doesn't secure and push AEW further down the pecking order? Can they grow that brand, and then WWE can move in? And if for no other reason, just the tape library alone has so much potential there that the AEW, or TNA hasn't capitalized on, that WWE could absolutely market that like you wouldn't believe. There's not as much, physical, hard media anymore. It would all be streaming type options, but that's one of the few libraries they don't have access to. I'm actually surprised when Ring of Honor was up for sale, or it was even close to being able to be sold, that WWE didn't swoop in and snag that with all the talent that they have, like the Seth Rollinses and people like that, who were in Ring of Honor at one point. I would have thought they would have tried to grab that. They missed out on that. TNA would be a huge get for them, and it would leave it so pretty much all of the wrestling from the beginnings through now would reside within 2 major companies, AEW having the AEW and Ring of Honor libraries, and WWE having pretty much everything else. But in terms of this, Anthem clearly has a potential sale in their mind for the future, and that's something to monitor closely, because we have to wonder, what is that going to mean for WWE? What is that going to mean for brand splits and cross-promoting and things like that? Is WWE still going to look at possibly doing something more stuff with Pro Wrestling Noah in Japan? All Japan Pro Wrestling has had a pre-existing relationship back in the 90s. That's a conversation some people have brought up about All Japan's business. Could WWE swoop in there? Does New Japan start talking to WWE if they can't rebound their business the way they want to? And if a deal with AEW, which so far all the partnerships with AEW seem to be very AEW leaning in terms of who gets pushed stronger, maybe they get tired of that, move on. I don't know. We'll have to wait and see. Back to AEW, Jack Perry recently returning, reforming the Jurassic Express with Luchasaurus. He was doing an interview, having a conversation about the appearance at All Out 2025, and bringing back the Jungle Boy persona after being the scapegoat. Now feuding with the Young Bucks, and it's interesting to see how he feels after essentially being labeled such a bad guy. After the scapegoat thing, he had his falling out with CM Punk. Some people sided with Punk. Some people felt like Perry was just an inexperienced, spoiled performer, whatever. You can have whatever opinion you want, but like the whole Crimea River thing, referencing the issue with Punk at All In London 2023, there's some people who he felt like were really into him. Some people he thought really rejected that. But a lot of people were still cheering for him, singing, dancing, and all that. And it was obvious at some point they were going to have to take this route. They really weren't doing anything with the Kill Switch character. Moving him back to being Luchasaurus and then feuding with the Bucks, I think, is a great idea. And it was a great way to bring Perry back to the company. They don't need him in the Elite anymore. He needed to do something with more substance when he came back. This is a great role. So it's interesting to see how he feels about the scapegoat run. How I don't think he feels like it was very successful at all, and now coming back doing what he's doing now, I think it's going to lead to a much better situation for him going forward. Jumping to CMLL, big news this week that TNA superstar Tessa Blanchard, former CMLL Women's Tag Team Champion, is returning to CMLL at Arena Mexico. She's going to be going in. They're doing a CMLL Women's Grand Prix featuring talents from AEW, Stardom, other international promotions. And what's interesting is Tessa Blanchard being under contract to TNA, and make no mistake about it, she is still under contract to TNA, who is in a working relationship with WWE, working at a CMLL show while WWE owns their rival AAA, while CMLL is working with AEW. You see how convoluted this gets, and they're working with Stardom while WWE works with Marigold. There's a lot going on here. And of course, that's aside from the fact that the reason Tessa Blanchard is so polarizing is because of her potentially racist comments, and I wasn't there. I say potentially because I wasn't in the room. The allegations that she made racist comments towards a wrestler La Rosa Negra while she was in Japan years ago, but since then she disappeared for a long time, going to CMLL in 2024, winning the Women's Tag Team Championship. Once she signed with TNA, she vacated those championships, and this will be, she has been going down there. She has her partner in life, I don't even know how to pronounce the guy's name. Esfinge, Esfinge, I don't know, is apparently her partner, who's a CMLL luchador. So she goes down to support her partner, but outside of that, hasn't appeared as a wrestler. This will be the first time in quite a while. And with all that convoluted mess I just spit out there about the different companies, really interesting they would even pull this off. I don't know how they're making that come together and how the two major companies feel about that. Jumping to Dave Meltzer, because what is an episode without making fun of Dave Meltzer? I love the fact that so much of what he talks about is just utter nonsense lately, but he was talking about AEW and Tony Khan, his most ill-spent money of his entire time in AEW, and he was referencing the money he spent to sign Rusev, making him Miro, making him the Redeemer character, Miro never wanting to job to certain people. Now, he speculates that he didn't want a job to anybody because he wanted to raise his value to go back to WWE, which is absolutely ludicrous if you ask me, because he wasn't signing like a one-year deal with AEW and then going back to WWE, and anybody going into any professional wrestling company thinking they're never going to lose in a 4 or 5 year contract is insane. So I don't even think that's remotely accurate. If it is, then he never should have been signed in the first place, and maybe that's accurate to say that Tony Khan wasted money. But if that's the case, that just makes Tony Khan an insanely ridiculous financial planner when it comes to his company making bad business decisions. When you look at everything else AEW has done, I don't buy that. I think there was a mutual agreement that certain things were going to happen, and as the shows unfolded, dictated, and panned out, for one reason or another, things didn't come together. If you're Miro and you show up in AEW and the first thing they have you doing is being a lackey for somebody's wedding, I'd be frustrated too. He came in, he could have been a main eventer night one like Andrade Iliolo will be, and they didn't do that. Now, he did get runs with the TNT Championship, which is fine. He did a very nice job with that. But that's really all he did in AEW. Didn't really do anything of substance. It was a missed opportunity. So in that respect, maybe some wasted money. But at the end of the day, his Redeemer character in that TNT Championship run was fruitful. So I don't think it's a waste of money. It just didn't pan out the way he wanted. Meltzer overemphasizing things sometimes absolutely drives me crazy, because this is a guy who's made his entire career off doing the same thing I do. I'm a fan, he's a fan. He has no more credentials to critique and talk about professional wrestling than I do. The only difference between me and him is he has connections within the business because he's been doing it so long. He's met everybody and anybody and everybody. And in the early part of his career, who the heck knows how he made those connections. It certainly wasn't because he was the most savvy news reporter in the world. He got his way in there, made some conversations with people, and was able to get some inside scoops, and that somehow gave him the clout to start making star ratings and weekly reports. And look, more power to him. I'm not crapping on him. That's what I do. I'm just a fan, just like you guys are. But when we start giving too much credence to what he says, that's where it gets to go off the rails just a little bit for me. Last thing of the night, BJ Ray from LFG WWE Seasons 1, Season 2 announced that he had surgery just recently to deal with his shoulder injuries. Apparently he suffered at the beginning of, and if you watch the episodes, it happened at the beginning of LFG. This guy gets on my last nerve. I don't even want to see him anymore. LFG Season 1, he was competing with a torn rotator cuff and a labrum. It has never been fixed. Now he's finally getting it fixed. He says he'll be back. And he's still claiming that the ratings and everything are all about him. I know that's him just working a character. I hope the guy's not as arrogant a jerk in real life as he seems to be. Everything I've seen. If you haven't watched LFG, you're missing out. It's actually a very good show. It is certainly not tough enough. A lot of people thought it was just going to be tough enough. It's not. It's significantly better than that, but definitely could use some improvement if this is the guy you're leaning on. That's all the time we have for this episode. Check back with us next episode, run down the latest wrestling news and rumors. Special thanks as always out to Suno for creating the music and sound effects in our show. Today's show is sponsored in part by Beazle Games. Bringing a new friend to family game night is easy with Sketchy people. Showcase your artistic side in this game from Beazle Games by going to thegamecrafter.com and picking up your copy today. If you're looking for your next career move, you're considering college or university life, or maybe you just need some formal training for your next career decision, go to our website at frolifeplanning.com for all your higher education needs, as Fro Life Educational Planning is for today, for tomorrow, and for life with Fro Life. I'm Fred Froelich, better known as Dr. Fro. I want to thank you for taking a few moments with us today. Until next time, take care, everybody. Have a great night.